Panic gripped my heart as I stared at the unknown number flashing on my phone screen. It was an early morning in April, a time when calls usually meant trouble. I answered with a hesitant, "Hello? Lara Mitchell?" The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, urgent. "Yes, speaking." "This is St. Mary's Hospital. Your husband, Ethan Mitchell, was brought in early this morning. He's been in a traffic accident." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Ethan, my husband of 6 years, the man who promised to grow old with me, now lying in a hospital bed. My mind raced with questions, but my voice was a mere whisper. Is he okay?" "He's stable, but we need you here, Mrs. Mitchell. Can you come?" "I'll be there as soon as I can." I hung up, my hands trembling. Ethan had been on a business trip or so, he said. Why was he in a hospital here, in our city? I rushed to the hospital, my mind a whirlwind of fear and confusion. The cold morning air stung my face as I ran, but it was nothing compared to the turmoil inside me. Arriving at the hospital, I was led to Ethan's room. My heart pounded in my chest as I approached, preparing myself to see him, to be strong for him. But nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. The door to Ethan's room was slightly ajar. I pushed it open, expecting to find Ethan alone, injured, vulnerable. Instead, I found him and Mia, his sister, in a state of undress, their bodies entangled in a way that siblings should never be. A wave of nausea hit me. Mia, who had always been cold and distant towards me, was now in the arms of my husband. Their betrayal was a visceral blow. "Ethan?" My voice broke the silence, thick with disbelief and disgust. Mia turned, her eyes wide with shock. Ethan followed, his face a mask of guilt. "Lara, this isn't what it looks like," Ethan stammered, but his words were empty, meaningless. I couldn't listen anymore. I fled the room. Each step away from them felt like a step out of a nightmare. But this was no dream. It was a harsh, cruel reality. In the empty corridor, my thoughts raced. Ethan and Mia together? It was unthinkable, yet the evidence was undeniable. My marriage, my trust, my entire world had been shattered in an instant. And as the initial shock subsided, a fiery anger took its place. They had betrayed me, humiliated me, but I wouldn't let them get away with it. I would make them pay for their deceit. With a newfound resolve, I walked away from the room, away from the life I thought I knew. I was no longer the naive, trusting wife. I was a woman scorned, and I would have my revenge. The evening sun cast long shadows across my living room, but the darkness creeping into my heart was far deeper. Alone, with my thoughts spiraling, I reflected on the past, trying to understand how my life had come to this. Ethan and I met at a mutual friend's party, a chance encounter that blossomed into love. He was charming, attentive, and I thought honest. Our wedding was a dream, filled with promises of a future together. But Mia, she was always a thorn in our relationship. Ethan's older sister by 3 years, she wielded a peculiar hold over him, one that I never quite understood. Her disdain for me was evident from the start. At our wedding, her forced smile didn't reach her eyes, which were cold, calculating. "I'll always be his first love, you know," Mia once whispered to me, a statement that I had dismissed as sibling affection. How wrong I was. As I sat there lost in thought, my phone buzzed. It was Ethan. I answered, my voice cold, distant. "Lara, please let me explain," Ethan pleaded. "Explain? How do you explain betrayal, Ethan, with your own sister?" The words tasted bitter in my mouth. "It's not what you think, Lara. It's complicated." "Complicated? You're right. Betraying your wife with your sister is complicated, disgusting even." Ethan was silent for a moment. "Mia and I, we've always been close. Too close, maybe. But I love you, Lara." "Love? Your love is a lie, Ethan. You've made a mockery of our vows." I could hear the desperation in his voice. "Lara, please. We can fix this. There's nothing left to fix. You've broken everything." With that, I hung up. Tears threatened to fall, but I willed them away. I wouldn't cry for Ethan, not anymore. He didn't deserve my tears. I thought about our life together, the lies woven into the fabric of our marriage. The late nights Ethan claimed were for work, the secretive phone calls, the sudden trips. It all made sense now. Mia's provocations, her sly comments, her outright hostility, it wasn't just jealousy, it was guilt, masked as hatred. And I had been too blind to see it. But no more. I would not be the victim in this sordid tale. They would pay for their betrayal. I would see to that. The night grew darker, mirroring the resolve settling in my heart. Ethan and Mia had wronged me, but they wouldn't have the last laugh. I would have my revenge, and it would be as cold and merciless as their betrayal. The next morning, the world outside was oblivious to the storm raging in my heart. I decided to step out for some air to clear my head, but fate had other plans. Walking through the park, lost in thought, I bumped into someone. It was Paul, Mia's husband. Our encounters were always brief, limited to polite exchanges at family gatherings. "Lara, right?" Paul's voice was warm, a stark contrast to the chill in my heart. "Yes, hi, Paul. Fancy meeting you here," I replied, forcing a smile. He noticed my discomfort. "Everything okay? You seem preoccupied." I hesitated, but decided against sharing my turmoil. "Just one of those days, you know?" Paul nodded understandingly. "I get it, if you ever need to talk." His offer was kind, but the irony wasn't lost on me. Here was Mia's husband, offering a shoulder to the wife she had betrayed. We parted ways soon after, a brief encounter that should have been insignificant. Yet, it was anything but. That evening, my phone rang. It was Mia. Her voice was a venomous hiss. "So, you're sinking your claws into my husband now? You're despicable, Lara." I was taken aback. "What are you talking about, Mia?" "Don't play dumb. Paul told me he saw you today, plotting to steal him too, huh?" Her accusations were ludicrous. "Mia, you're delusional. It was a chance meeting, nothing more." "Chance meeting? Right? Just like how you chanced upon Ethan?" Her words stung, but I kept my composure. "Mia, your paranoia is showing. Unlike some people, I respect the sanctity of marriage." There was a pause, then Mia spat. "You'll pay for this, Lara. Mark my words." The call ended, leaving me in stunned silence. Mia's delusions knew no bounds. First, she betrayed me with Ethan, and now she accused me of trying to seduce her husband. The irony was almost laughable. But her threats were not. Mia had shown her true colors, and they were as ugly as her soul. I realized then that my revenge couldn't be just about Ethan. Mia, too, deserved to face the consequences of her actions. Her betrayal was a double-edged sword, and I would ensure it cut her just as deeply as it had cut me. My resolve hardened. Ethan and Mia had started this game, but I would be the one to end it, and I would play to win. The days following were a blur of anger and disbelief. Ethan's supposed business trip loomed large in my mind, a lie that had shattered my trust. Then one evening, as I sat alone in our once happy home, Ethan called. His voice was cautious, laced with guilt. "Lara, I'm sorry. I should have told you the truth." "The truth? Now you speak of truth?" My voice was icy, sharp. "I wasn't on a business trip. I was with Mia." The admission hit me like a physical blow. "With Mia? You lied to me, Ethan. You lied and betrayed me in the worst way possible." Ethan sighed, a sound of defeat. "I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. But I need you to understand. It's not what you think. Not what I think. You and Mia together while you told me lies? What else is there to think, Ethan?" "Lara, please, let me explain. It's complicated." "Complicated? That's your excuse? Your betrayal is simple and clear. You chose Mia over your wife. There's nothing complicated about that." Ethan was silent for a moment. Then softly he said, "I'm so sorry, Lara. I never meant to hurt you." "Sorry doesn't undo what you've done. It doesn't erase the betrayal, the lies." "I know, and I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." "Make this right? There's no making this right, Ethan. You've broken everything." I hung up, my heart pounding with rage and sorrow. Ethan's confession was a cold reminder of the deceit that had been my marriage. The next day, I received a call from Mia. Her voice was smug, triumphant. "I heard you talk to Ethan. Finally accepted the truth?" "Accepted the truth?" "Mia, you and Ethan have destroyed any truth that existed between us." "Oh, poor Lara. Always playing the victim. You know, Ethan always belonged to me. You were just a temporary distraction." Her words were like venom. "Temporary distraction? I was his wife, Mia. What you did, it's unforgivable." Mia laughed, a cold, heartless sound. "Unforgivable? Please, we're in love. That's all that matters." "Love, what you and Ethan have is not love. It's a sick, twisted betrayal. Call it what you want, but Ethan is mine now. You should just move on, Lara." "Move on? Oh, I'll move on, Mia, but not before I make sure you and Ethan pay for what you've done." Mia's laughter echoed in my ears as I ended the call. They thought they had won, that they could just walk away from the wreckage they had caused. But they were wrong. I would have my revenge. Ethan and Mia would rue the day they decided to betray me. The game had just begun, and I was more determined than ever to emerge victorious. The revelation of Ethan and Mia's affair was like a wound that wouldn't heal. But wounds turn into scars, and scars are a testament to survival. I was ready to confront them, to face the truth head-on. I arranged to meet Ethan at a quiet cafe, a neutral ground for the storm that was brewing. He arrived looking weary, the weight of his guilt etched on his face. "Lara, thank you for meeting me," Ethan began, his voice tinged with a hope I didn't share. "Save it here for pleasantries. I want answers." Ethan nodded, resigned. "I owe you that much. Ask anything." "Why? Why her? Why Mia?" Ethan sighed, a deep, troubled sound. "It's complicated. Mia and we've always had this connection. It's hard to explain." "Try me," I challenged, my voice laced with bitterness. "It started when we were kids. It was innocent at first. But as we grew older, it changed. We knew it was wrong, but we couldn't help it. And you thought you could just keep this a secret? Marry me and pretend everything was normal?" Ethan looked down, shame written all over his face. "I thought I could put it behind me. I thought I loved you enough to forget about Mia. I was wrong." "You were wrong about a lot of things," I said coldly. "I know, and I'm sorry, Lara. I never meant to hurt you." "Sorry doesn't cut it, Ethan. You've ruined everything. Our marriage was a lie." Ethan reached out, but I recoiled. "I can't be near you, Ethan. Not now. Not ever. This is over." I stood up, ready to leave, but Ethan's next words stopped me. "What about Mia? Are you going to confront her too?" I turned, a plan forming in my mind. "Mia will get what's coming to her. I'll make sure of it." Ethan's eyes widened, a flicker of fear passing through them. "Lara, what are you planning?" "That's for me to know and you to find out. Just watch your back, Ethan." As I walked away, I felt a sense of empowerment. Ethan and Mia had betrayed me, but I wouldn't be their victim. It was time for them to face the consequences of their actions. I would dismantle their world, piece by piece, just as they had dismantled mine. My revenge would be meticulous, calculated. They would regret the day they decided to cross me. Ethan and Mia had played their game, but now it was my turn, and I intended to win. The days that followed were a meticulous orchestration of my plan. I gathered evidence, documenting Ethan and Mia's deceit. It was time for their facade to crumble publicly. The opportunity presented itself at a family gathering. It was an annual event, usually a time of celebration. But this year, it was the stage for their unmasking. The room was filled with relatives, unaware of the drama about to unfold. Ethan and Mia were there, playing their roles of the doting brother and sister-in-law. Their pretense sickened me. As dinner progressed, I found my moment. I stood, glass in hand, drawing the room's attention. "I'd like to propose a toast," I announced, my voice steady. Eyes turned to me, including Ethan's and Mia's. There was curiosity, expectation. I met Ethan's gaze, saw the flicker of fear in his eyes. "Good. To family," I began. "A bond that should be treasured, not betrayed." Murmurs of agreement filled the room. I continued. "But sadly, not everyone here shares that sentiment." The room quieted, sensing the shift in tone. Ethan's face had drained of color. Mia's eyes were wide, panicked. "I recently discovered a betrayal," I said, my voice rising. "A betrayal by two people in this room." Whispers erupted. I held up my phone, displaying the evidence I had collected, messages, photos, undeniable proof. "Ethan and Mia have been having an affair that shattered a marriage and mocked the sanctity of family." The room erupted in shock and disbelief. Ethan and Mia tried to protest, but their words were drowned out by the uproar. Their mother, standing in stunned silence, finally spoke. "Is this true?" Ethan lowered his head, unable to meet her gaze. Mia, defiant even now, said nothing. "You've disgraced this family," their mother said, her voice trembling with anger. "You've disgraced yourselves." The rest of the evening was chaos. Relatives confronted Ethan and Mia, their outrage palpable. I watched, a bittersweet satisfaction settling in me. They were finally seeing Ethan and Mia for who they truly were. As the party disbanded, the weight of what I had done began to sink in. I had exposed them, yes, but at what cost? The family was in turmoil. The once happy gathering turned into a scene of betrayal and shame. But as I left, I knew one thing for certain. Ethan and Mia would no longer bask in the comfort of their lies. They were now outcasts, their deceit laid bare for all to see. My revenge was far from over, but this was a start to reclaiming my life and my dignity. In the aftermath of the public revelation, I watched as Ethan and Mia's world unraveled. Their betrayal was no longer a private agony, but a public spectacle. It was time for legal retribution. I met with a lawyer, a woman known for her ruthlessness in the courtroom. As I explained my situation, her eyes sharpened, a predator sensing the vulnerability of its prey. "We'll go for a full divorce settlement," she said, her voice confident, "and considering the circumstances, a substantial compensation for emotional distress." "And Mia?" I asked, my voice steady. "We'll file a civil lawsuit against her for alienation of affection. It's a strong case, especially with the evidence you've gathered." I nodded, a sense of vindication filling me. Ethan and Mia would pay, not just socially, but financially. The legal proceedings were a whirlwind. Ethan was cooperative, beaten down by guilt and public shame. He agreed to the divorce and the financial settlements without contest. But Mia was another story. In court, she was defiant, refusing to acknowledge her role in the destruction of my marriage, but the evidence was overwhelming and the judgment was swift. Mia was ordered to pay a significant sum for her part in the affair. The courtroom was a cold place, filled with legal jargon and the sterile scent of justice. But as the gavel slammed down, declaring the verdict, a wave of relief washed over me. It was over, at least legally. But the real victory came later. Mia's life unraveled rapidly. Her marriage to Paul ended in a bitter divorce, and her reputation was left in tatters. The financial strain of the lawsuit and divorce settlements left her struggling, a shadow of the arrogant woman she once was. Ethan, too, faced his consequences. The divorce took a toll on him both emotionally and financially. He reached out to me once, a feeble attempt at reconciliation, but I shut him down. There was no going back, not after everything that had happened. As I rebuilt my life, I realized that my revenge had come at a cost. I had won, but the victory was bittersweet. Ethan and Mia were paying for their betrayal, but the family was fractured, the joy of our gatherings a thing of the past. But amidst the ruins, I found a sense of peace. I had stood up for myself, fought back against those who wronged me. My heart was healing, slowly but surely. Ethan and Mia had taken so much from me, but they couldn't take my spirit. I was moving forward, stronger and more resilient than before. Their betrayal was a part of my past, but it would not define my future. The legal battles were over, and the dust of my shattered life had begun to settle. I found myself in a new apartment, smaller but cozier, filled with a sense of my own identity. It was a fresh start, a place untainted by the memories of Ethan and Mia. One evening, as I sat on my balcony overlooking the city lights, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Ethan's mother, a woman I had always respected and who had shown me nothing but kindness throughout the ordeal. "Lara, can we meet for coffee? I need to talk to you." I agreed, curious and a little apprehensive. We met at a quiet cafe, the same place where I had confronted Ethan months ago. She looked older, the strain of her children's actions etched on her face. "Lara, I wanted to apologize," she began, her voice tinged with sadness, "for Ethan, for Mia, for everything." "There's nothing for you to apologize for," I replied gently. "You weren't the one who betrayed me." "I know, but I feel responsible. They're my children after all, and I've lost them both." Her pain was evident, and it mirrored my own. They made their choices, and they're facing the consequences. She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I just wish things could have been different." "We all do," I said, feeling a wave of empathy for her. "But we have to play the cards we're dealt." We talked for a while, sharing our grief and our hopes for the future. When we parted, there was a sense of closure, of mutual understanding and respect. As I walked back to my apartment, I felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The chapter of Ethan and Mia was closed, but my story was still being written. I realized that my journey of revenge, though justified, had left scars. But those scars were a testament to my strength, my resilience. They were a part of me, but they did not define me. I began to focus on my career, throwing myself into new projects with a renewed vigor. I reconnected with old friends and made new ones. Life was moving on, and so was I. One day I received a letter from Ethan. He wrote of his regret, his sorrow, and his newfound understanding of the pain he had caused. He wished me happiness, a sentiment that once would have fueled my anger, but now it only brought a sense of pity. I didn't respond. Ethan was a part of my past, a chapter that had ended. I was looking forward, not back. I had learned so much about myself, about my strength and my capacity for forgiveness. I had been betrayed, yes, but I had also grown. I was no longer the naive, trusting woman I once was. I was wiser, tougher, and more independent. As I looked out over the city, a sense of peace settled over me. I had faced the worst kind of betrayal and come out stronger. My future was unwritten, a blank canvas waiting for new experiences, new joys, and new challenges. Ethan and Mia had tried to break me, but they had failed. I was still standing, still fighting, still living, and that was the greatest revenge of all.